is Yashasvi, and I'm the Manager for Patient Services at the Kidney Foundation located here in BC and Yukon. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the Caregivers Corner. We are truly honored to have each one of you join us today. Before we begin, I'd like to review with you how to participate in the session. Please feel free to enter any questions you may have throughout the presentation. We will collect those questions and at the end of the presentation, we will address as many as we can. You'll also have an opportunity during the Q&A period to ask questions live as time permits. We invite you to send any further questions to kidneyprograms@kidney.ca. The chat feature is only available on Feedloop in the box at the right side of your screen. If you have general comments that are not questions, you can enter there. We are offering this session bilingually using simultaneous translation. During the presentation, speakers will present in English. To hear the presentation in your preferred language, choose English or French as your language preference in the interpretation icon in the Zoom toolbar. Please remember that the Kidney Foundation is not able to offer any medical advice. For specific information about your own situation, please speak with your healthcare team. Today, our focus is on a topic close to our hearts, caregiving for kidney patients. It's a vital aspect for healthcare that often doesn't receive the attention it truly deserves. And through this session, we aim to create a space dedicated to creating connections, fostering understanding, and providing support for caregivers of kidney patients. Before we dive into our speakers' introductions, I want to give you a quick overview of what to expect during our session. We have 5 remarkable individuals with us today, each bringing their unique perspectives and experiences as caregivers for kidney patients. Firstly, each speaker will introduce themselves. To make this more personal, we have prepared a visual presentation for you all. You'll see a slide featuring each speaker along with a brief background about them. It's a great way for us to connect faces with the incredible stories you're about to hear. After the introductions, we'll transition into a fireside chat. Today's fireside chat aims to explore various aspects of caregiving, from personal journeys to overcoming challenges and advocating for the needs of our kidney patients. I will be moderating this part of the session and will be asking our speakers some thought-provoking questions to delve deeper into their experiences and insights as caregivers. Feel free to engage with us by posting your questions in the chat, and as time permits, we'll address them during the Q&A session towards the end of the session. Now, without further ado, let's have the pleasure of getting introduced to our incredible panel of speakers, and each of them brings a unique perspective and a wealth of experience to our discussion. And now I'm going to pass on the stage to our speaker, Judy. Judy, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Yash. My name's Judy. I live in Owen Sound, Ontario, which for those that don't know where that is, it's about 2 hours northwest of Toronto. My husband, who is in the picture with me, is who I'm a caregiver for. Although he would probably tell you differently, I am his caregiver. We are a couple that have had a lot of dealings with kidney disease. Tom's family, my husband, his family has been greatly affected by kidney disease. His family, his mother, brother, sister, and now our son, as well as Tom, have all had kidney transplants. Tom has actually had 2. His first transplant was in the in 2002. It failed, unfortunately, about 17 years later, and I was a donor for his second transplant. The picture on the right-hand side of the screen is the day we got our transplant. It's now been almost 3 years. It took almost a year for the transplant to happen. Unfortunately, we were found to be a match only about a month before COVID hit. So that delayed everything. We've been greatly involved in the kidney walks in our area. We've enjoyed doing that. I love walking. That's my way of dealing with stress. And I have joined the Kidney Foundation just over a year ago, and I'm involved with a lot of the different peer support groups. I really enjoy meeting lots of people from all over, and I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of new people from across the country now that this has opened up for a lot of other people. So I'm here, and I'd love to give any kinds of tips and advice that I've come across in my many years of dealing with kidney disease. Back to you, Yash.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you for joining us tonight. Now I'm going to move on with Joshi. Joshi, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Joshi. I am Fijian, and I'm a caregiver with, together with my mom. My mom actually, my father does not live with me. My mom lives with my dad, of course, and she takes care of him at home. I deal with all of the medical because they're not very well versed in the medical field. So I take care of all of that. And every day I am with my dad and take care of him with my mom, together with my mom. I am a peer facilitator with the Kidney Foundation as well. My father has been on dialysis, nocturnal dialysis at Royal Columbian Hospital. He lives in Port Coquitlam. He has been on dialysis for 13 months now. He is waiting for a transplant. He's 70 years old. I am trying to look for a live donor for my dad. He has 3 kids, myself, my sister, and my brother, who, it's hard having such a big family, but none of us can be a donor for my dad because we have ourselves, we've had kidney infections, high blood pressure, or diabetes. My sister has diabetes type 1 on insulin. So it's kind of hard. My brother as well. My mom was not a match. And so that's been difficult. He's got 4 grandchildren. And as you can see in the pictures, he loves his home. He loves his gardening. He loves to be outside. He loves just family. Anyways, I'm also on the South Asian Transplant Committee with Dr. Jag Gill at St. Paul's Hospital. Kidney disease, I never knew anything about it. I didn't even know what kidney disease was until my dad was diagnosed back in December. I knew nothing about it, nothing. And here I am today, being a speaker, being an advocate in the South Asian community, raising awareness. It's been a journey, let's just say. But I am here today to talk about caregiving and being out there and all that. So if you have any questions, I'm here. Back to you, Yash.
Thanks, Joshi. We're so excited to have you here. And yeah, looking forward to your insights in the fireside portion of the session. Now I'm going to ask Irwin to go ahead and introduce himself.
Hello, folks. My name is Erwin Schweitzer. I'm based in Ottawa. I am my wife's caregiver. She was diagnosed in 2016 in very unusual circumstances. Her family doctor was retiring, and in his eagerness to close up his office, between the time he closed his office and the time we found out about Kathy's kidney disease, some time had passed. He then called us and apologized for the delay. I don't recall how long it was between the closure of his office and our finding out about Kathy's elevated kidney function test, but that was indicative of her disease. That was in 2016. Bit of a surprise about that, but we continued our lives until about 2.5 years ago when Kathy's kidney disease got a little bit worse. Her kidney function dropped to the point where we were told that Kathy needed to go on to dialysis. In Ottawa, they have, we call it a boutique approach to kidney disease. We are very well treated by what is called the multi-care kidney clinic. We saw a whole raft of different specialists related to nephrology until we got to the home dialysis unit, where we went back to school to learn about how to care for Kathy's kidneys. We learned about the different modalities of dialysis as well as about transplant. And it was suggested to Kathy that we consider a preemptive transplant, which would have been the ideal way to go. In the course of trying to find a transplant, we had some good news and some bad news. The bad news was that Kathy was diagnosed with lung cancer. But the good news was she was diagnosed with lung cancer. And the reason I say it that way is because lung cancer is very insidious. And for most people who ultimately get a diagnosis of lung cancer, it's only at the stage where it's quite obvious that it has an impact on your life. But as you are worked up for a kidney transplant, You are looked over 6 ways from Sunday, and they found 3 little spots on Kathy's lungs. They were able to remove 2 out of the 3, and the third one is pretty quiet. As a result of that, Kathy was taken off the transplant list. The guidelines say you have to be, quote, cancer-free for about 2 years. So we're coming up to the 2-year point where we have to reconsider that notion again. We were very lucky to have 2 people matched to Kathy in terms of characteristics required for an ideal match. And both of those people said that they're willing to wait. So we are very grateful for them. The issue that we're dealing with now is that in order to go and have a transplant, you need to take immunosuppressive drugs. The downside of the immunosuppressive drugs is that the little cancer that is still in Kathy might wake up and become more of a problem. So we're caught between a rock and a hard place. That being said, Kathy's been on peritoneal dialysis for about 2.5 years, and it fits very well into our lifestyle now. Kathy still works full-time. She's a physician at one of the local hospitals here. I'm retired, and we call ourselves a company of 2. I'm the CEO, but she's really the boss of our kidney company. We have 3 grandchildren living in Toronto, where my daughter and son-in-law live. We get to see them on a fairly regular basis, and for 3 young kids, the oldest being 11, they've accommodated their grandmother's extra luggage in an amazing, youthful way. We are very appreciative of that, and we look forward to seeing them grow up. And I will ask Yash to introduce the next speaker.
You truly are a power couple, you and Kathy. Okay, I'm gonna move ahead with the next speaker, Cleo.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Cleo Slattery, and I'm going to talk to you about my caregiving journey, which started about 6 years ago. My husband and I both live in Maple Ridge, BC, and we got married about 17 years ago. We have 1 teenage son. Although we live in BC, we're both actually from the East Coast. I'm originally from Montreal, Quebec, and he's from Ontario and Toronto, and we met here in BC. We split our time between not only I'm his primary caregiver, but also we still try to do some youthful things as much as possible, go to concerts, gardening, festivals, anything we can do when he's on his good day. We still try to do even date nights, even if it's just let's go to a restaurant when you're feeling good. So we usually do a lot of that. And over time, as his kidney disease became more prevalent and the kidney failure, my journey began and our lives changed dramatically. My son, who was very much involved in football and things like that, we still kept quite active as a family, but a lot of things did have to change, and we had to rely a lot on our community to help out. So we live about an hour outside of Vancouver. He does go to Royal Columbian Hospital for dialysis. I would say he's up to probably like 4 days a week now, because we are wanting a transplant, definitely. So he's trying to get that extra fluid and get himself healthy for a transplant. So yeah, and I split my time between not only caregiving, I work from home as an employment liaison, and I enjoy, like I said, concerts, but for myself, I also enjoy reality TV, cooking, and occasional gardening. And I'll talk some more about my journey in the chat portion, and back over to you, Yash. Thank you for the opportunity today.
Thank you, Cleo. Love those pictures there on the slide. Okay, so our next speaker is Sharon. Sharon, over to you.
Hi, my name is Sharon Rakelma, and I live, laugh, and play on the lands of the Qualicum First Nation on Vancouver Island in BC. My husband, Michael, first failed in 2018 when we were sent over to Vancouver to St. Paul's Hospital. And that was really my first stint as being a caregiver, trying to wash his hair at the hospital with those silly little caps that are shampooless and we had shampoo running down his head. As you can see, yeah, my first attempt was a complete disaster. During the next 4 years, we did both hemo and peritoneal dialysis. And navigating diet changes, sometimes one day he would be on the peritoneal, the next time he would be on hemo. So it was a challenge to go to the grocery store and go, what are we on today? As the diets are a little bit different. And our supply deliveries, I don't have the photo there, those were also a challenge for us, getting those supplies into the house for the month, or even when we were off to conferences, planning out in advance how many days we would need to take with us, how many extra boxes need to go, and it would take 3 days to pack up for a one-day conference sometimes. I attended my first kidney walk in 2018. I was looking for something to do during that dreaded dialysis wait where you don't have time to go home and do something while your partner's in dialysis. And I saw the posters for the kidney walk and thought, well, why not? It'll kill 3 hours. Little did I know that I would end up being on the board one day. Shortly, yeah, so we faced our biggest challenges during COVID because as a caregiver, I found myself quite often sitting outside the emergency in the pouring rain, in the middle of winter, in the middle of the night, waiting to hear from him what was happening with whatever issue had brought him there. And at that same time, I became caregiver for my mother. So I was looking after 2 people in 2 separate houses. And I found myself sitting outside the emergency several times for one or the other person. My biggest fear was the day that I would have to take them both to the emergency at the same time. However, after my mother passed away, in 2021, I buried my mother, married off my son to a fabulous girl, and my husband got a kidney transplant in 2022 to the day that he failed. So we have just celebrated our 2nd kidney anniversary, and we're very happy about that. The biggest support I've got is from my belly dancing girls who were there with hugs and laughter, tears, whatever we needed to do to get through. And my husband and I have been on this road together for quite some time, and it hasn't ended yet. Even though he's got his transplant, it has not ended. And on those days that you feel like you can't go on anymore, just keep putting one step in front of the other, even if it's a small baby step. Keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you to each one of you for those amazing introductions. Your willingness to share your caregiving journey is not only inspiring, but also a testament to the strength and compassion within the caregiving journey. Now I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so now that we're done with the introductions, without further delay, let's dive into the heart of the discussion, the fireside chat. During our fireside chat, we'll cover a range of topics touching on personal journeys, challenges faced, coping strategies, the importance of support systems, and the crucial balance of self-care. Each speaker will have the opportunity to share their thoughts on these topics, and hopefully we foster a rich and insightful conversation. To begin with, I'm eager to hear about the personal stories, wisdom, and reflections our speakers have to offer, and I'll start with a simple question for Erwin. Erwin, can you share a specific moment or experience that made you realize the significance of becoming a caregiver for Kathy, your wife?
Thank you for asking. It really started for me, I suppose, not really understanding the numbers that the doctor gave to me that I wrote down and then shared with Kathy after she came home with work that day. Things really started to clarify for me when we started our kidney school education. I was just amazed at the amount of information that our healthcare team was sharing with us. It's not just, oh, you have kidney disease, here's what you need to do. So we learned a little bit about anatomy. We learned a little bit about physiology. We learned a little bit about diet. They just threw so much material at us that it's sort of like almost like an information overload. I mean, I'm not um, a stupid person by any stretch of the imagination, but with the amount of information that they threw at us, I figured I'm glad that I took notes. I mean, they provided us with handout information with lots of pictures, simplified stuff, for the non-technical people. Um, but it's a lot of information to take in. It's not a one-day training session. We went to school for about 3 full days, and we were introduced to nurses. We were introduced to social workers. We were introduced to dietitians and obviously nephrologists. And I found out that there are transplant nephrologists and there are dialysis nephrologists and there are general nephrologists, and they all have their areas of expertise. So you don't just speak to a nephrologist, you speak to a nephrologist who is focused on that part of the education that is pertinent to where you are in your kidney journey. So it's really the single biggest thing was the volume of material that you need to have in order to step into caring for the person who has kidney disease. It's not like taking a pill. There's a lot more involved in it, but it's something that over time you become used to, and you're reminded of the importance of what you're doing every time you set up a dialysis machine, or every time you take a blood pressure, or every time you record a weight in your logbook, or every time you realize that, oops, put a little bit too much salt into that stew. So there's lots of little things that require that education that bring you back to what you learned, and you're constantly going back, checking your notes, and always asking yourself, am I doing the right thing? You're going to Google, you're calling the clinic. It's always a question of making sure that the knowledge that you have is the most up to date and that the practices that you're following are the most current according to your healthcare team.
Well, absolutely. Self-education and getting yourself aware as a caregiver is truly very important. And I see, yeah, thank you for sharing that, Irwin. I see Sharon has her hand up and she has something to offer for that question. Sharon, over to you.
Yeah, so the biggest challenge is, I think, is not having control of what's going on in your world anymore. You're and not knowing, and so you have to make sure that you get the education however you can do it. And yeah, just ask the questions, write down the questions and ask them, because you don't think about those questions while you're in the office, whichever office you're in, you don't think about them until you get home. And it continues on. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Cleo has her hand up and then we'll move on to Judy. Okay, Cleo.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add to that for what Erin was speaking on, and I heard several people talk about how their loved one has tried various types of dialysis. My husband also, we tried peritoneal, didn't work for him. And then we tried home dialysis. This was probably a few months before the pandemic. It was overwhelming, very overwhelming. We got through it because by the time we finished, it took us like 3 months of full on training. I think 3 days a week or 4 times a week. I can't even remember. And tons of information, and remember coming out just so overwhelmed and just but I thought, I got this, I'm learning, I'm going to write down everything, I'm going to do everything. But once we got home, it felt even more overwhelming. I found myself very isolated. On top of that, I had to do most of it. My husband didn't have the dexterity to really help do the controls on the machine. So I basically was running everything, and he would alarm the machine a lot. I just hated it. It was in our spare room, and every time I would try to relax, stay like say on our bottom floor of our where we lived, I would hear the alarm go off. I have to run up there and see what's going on, something clogging, a blood pressure problem, something. I would say we tried as long as possible. We probably lasted about 6 months at the most. This was during the pandemic. We felt, yeah, let's just stay home and do this. But after that, I just couldn't do it anymore. It was too heavy on us. And like you said, calling in constantly, I was trying to call in, and a lot of times sometimes the staff would try to help us, but they were only there, told me, oh, we're only here from 8 to 3. So sometimes that wasn't helpful. And actually, the company, and I'm thinking if Ontario is the same, we would use Baxter. Sometimes the techs were more helpful. They knew what to do and they're around all the time. But for me, I found it too much, and I found the support better at the hospital, because at least I found that there was a nurse, there was an aide, there were so many people, and there was four rather than just me, one person. And that really helped. And you have to look at your own caregiving needs. What are you able to do? And at first I looked at it as I'm failing him and my family because I can't do this. But I realized, well, you have to look at your own capabilities and as a team. And we felt it, and socially, it was better for him to go out and be in the hospital because he was able to socialize. He loves to socialize a lot. But thank you.
Well, yeah, no, I agree. It's always a learning curve, even as a caregiver. You learn as you go through your journey. I see we have Judy's hand up. Judy, moving on to you.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what everyone else has said. Being a caregiver is a 24/7 job. You are there for the person all the time. And my husband, we did find it really overwhelming when he first had his first kidney failure, which is in the 1990s. We were very lucky. He started peritoneal dialysis and got a transplant just 2.5 months later from a deceased donor, which is totally remarkable. And we were so thankful of that. He did do peritoneal and hemodialysis the second time around when his kidney failed in 2019. It's very overwhelming for everyone, but I'm going to say my best piece of advice that I was told is be their second set of ears. There's so much information that they get and they become so overwhelmed by it that if you're able, and I know I wasn't at the beginning of the second term because of the whole COVID thing, but being able to go to as many appointments with him as I possibly could and being his second set of ears, and probably in more cases being his second mouth and telling everyone what he wasn't telling them, is the best advice I could give to anyone, is speak up, tell what's going on. Thanks.
Thank you, Judy. That's great. I agree. Now it really makes me wonder if there were any changes in the dynamics of your relationship with your kidney patient that might have evolved over the course of your caregiving journey. If anyone has something to talk about the changes in the dynamics of the relationship.
I would say that we ended up well, given what Kathy does for a living as a psychiatrist, she's always talking. And we spend a fair bit of time chatting. I don't know if it's any more than other couples, but the conversations have a little bit of a psychiatric twist to them, given what I know about how she speaks with her patients. But I would say in terms of the dynamic, I think it's made us a little bit stronger because while I might be the caregiver and I'm involved with, as Judy has mentioned, being the second set of ears, the second mouth, attending the appointments, ordering the supplies and all of that, I'm more sensitive to what her needs are when she doesn't say how she's feeling either before dialysis or after dialysis. And we spend a fair bit of time talking about how she feels while she's on we do overnight dialysis, but we talk about it while she's, going to sleep, when she wakes up in the morning, how she felt overnight. If the alarms, as Cleo's mentioned, can be quite upsetting, but she tends to sleep through those. I don't. so the dynamic of the relationship has evolved to the fact that we spend even more time talking about things. Obviously kidney related, but a lot of other things too. And reflecting back to before she started on dialysis, we had regular, what I would imagine would be, regular content conversations. Our conversations are longer and they're more content filled with how she's feeling, what we're doing, what we're planning, when we go away on trips. As been mentioned, packing up, spending 3 days to go away for 1 day. We've done that, and we have our checklist. So a lot of the conversations, the dynamics in the relationship do revolve around the kidney disease, but not because we don't have other things to say.
Thanks for sharing that, Irwin. I see Judy has something to say. Judy, over to you.
Sorry, forgot to unmute myself. I was going to say, Tom and I are married almost 40 years now. We haven't killed each other. So I'm thinking nothing has changed in our relationship. We own a business that employs close to 100 people, and we see each other 24/7. I'm semi-retired or almost fully retired, 99.9%. He still goes to work every day. But again, it's, you get in a groove, and it can work no matter how desperate things seem to get sometimes. You laugh about it, you cry about it, and you move on because you know that it's the reality of it. And I think, if nothing else, it's brought us stronger and made us stronger being together. I've had to deal with my son as well, and it's given us something in common to talk about. He's now a dad himself, has 2 kids, so it's like, it doesn't stop you no matter what is going on in your life. Kidney disease is just one stage. And I say the more communication that you can have with your patient, caregiver person, the better. But don't kill each other when you get to the point where things are getting rough.
Thanks, Judy. That's amazing to know that the relationship for you has gotten even stronger. And I see Cleo has her hand up. Cleo.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. Yeah, I think in the beginning I felt it was very difficult. Like I said, we were seen as kind of the younger, I guess, in a sense. I don't feel that young anymore. Couple, and it was hard because we live this life where we're constantly on the go, as I mentioned in my intro, football games and involved in the community a lot, and that completely dropped. So it was really hard to transition from being an active couple to everything stopped. He had to stop working. I had to start figuring out caregiving needs. And in the beginning, yeah, we butted heads a lot because he wanted to run the show on everything. And I was like, you can't, you're ill. I have to figure this out with you. And we butted heads, I would say, a lot. And then we figured out, I would say it's a lot easier now because we kind of figured out, I told him that the best thing is that we don't see each other as I'm the caregiver and you are the person that's the patient. I told him separate. I found what was happening is he couldn't separate from all those high needs he was getting at the hospital, where at the time before COVID, they even had volunteers who'd go and get your food, your coffee, whatever. So he would just shout out, "Hey, can I get a coffee?" So he was kind of doing that at home, unfortunately. I was like, "Hey, I'm here as your wife." And I had to constantly remind them, I'm your wife, not a carrier helper. And someone gave him that advice because we would go out and sometimes people would thought like I'm the helper or I'm the hired person to help him. It's like, no, 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 that's my wife, because and also the reverse would happen also. Sometimes they would speak to me, not speak to him. I'm like, okay, because after a while, because of his weakness, he uses a wheelchair sometimes or a walker. So they wouldn't speak to him. I'm like, you can ask him. You can talk to him. You don't just talk just to me. He understands. So those dynamics over the years, we both had to learn. And I would say to add this piece, also getting some mental health, you know, for both partners, get some therapy because you need it, on his end because of the illness he's going through, but on my end too. I constantly am every year or every few years saying, I better go back and look at this dynamic or what's going on with me to help strengthen us and get new tools. So that's another aspect that helped us as a couple as our journey changed.
Absolutely. Thank you, Cleo. Truly, you do need some time to settle down into the new dynamics and just to understand, your roles. And at the end of the day, it's a team. You and your husband, you both work together as a team. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Okay, Irvin, over to you.
Yeah, I just wanted, it's funny the way Cleo mentioned what she did brings me to mind of a line that you can't control what happens, but you can control what your response is. And kidney disease just happens and you can't do anything about it except manage it with dialysis, manage it with transplant. And as she mentioned, as caregivers, we all have our own personal needs. And one of the things that we talk about in the caregiver group that I do peer support for is if you don't look out for yourself, then you're not going to be able to look out for your loved one. So it's not being selfish to say, I need to get out, or it's not being selfish that, yeah, I'll get to your needs once I finish my coffee. I just need to finish my coffee. The few moments that you might take or the hour that you might take, if it gives you a little bit of a peace of mind or, a break in your caregiving routine, then it's important because it feeds back into the caregiving routine.
Absolutely, Irvin. And that actually leads me to my next question, which is actually very connected to what you just mentioned. I'm just wondering, or actually I'm curious to know if you as a caregiver or anyone from our panelists for tonight, if you had a support system, or specifically, are there any resources that played a crucial role in supporting you as a caregiver in your journey?
I would say that I call them the second string. And those are our family members, Kathy's brother, our nieces and nephews, my daughter's son-in-law, and even our grandchildren. I mean, they don't shy away from us because their grandmother has a tube coming out of her tummy. They don't, ask questions about the volume of boxes that we bring into their house when we go for a visit. It's, oh yeah, grandma, grandpa coming for a visit, and they have all of these funny things that come with us. So the coping strategy, the network, the support, it's there for us. The healthcare team at the clinic that we attend in Ottawa, very, very open. Last week we had a few issues with dialysis. Kathy had incomplete dialysis for about 4 days running, and the clinic took us every day that we needed to come in to help us troubleshoot what the problems were. And in the end, we figured out what the problem was. And the day after the problem was identified and resolved, we got courtesy calls back from the healthcare workers, from the nurses who were attending us, asking how things went. Very, very heartwarming to get that. Wasn't expecting it, but they just wanted to know that the help that they provided was useful to us. And we very much appreciated the fact that they took time out of their day on Friday, and one actually called on Saturday morning to find out how things went Friday night. So we're very appreciative to have that technical support team and what I call a second string team, which would be family and friends. They are in the background, the second string, ready to pitch in when we ask them to. They know that they might be asked, but we make sure that we would only be asking if it was a last resource.
That's true. It's always comforting to know that you have someone to fall back to, just have that support network. Okay, Judy.
I totally agree with what Irwin said. The healthcare team that my husband has been involved with has been phenomenal. Unfortunately, my husband got COVID just 3 months after our donor transplant, and literally almost killed him. He was in the hospital for 10 weeks on a ventilator. And it was amazing. My transplant social worker contacted me like every other day, and she got the social worker that is involved in the ICU department to contact me. So it's just amazing, the healthcare team that will reach out if you need it. Don't be afraid to ask, because that is huge. I had to learn that the hard way. When he was in the hospital with COVID, I let things get beyond me. I know I started to deal with anxiety. I called the counseling line that the federal government set up for COVID at that time. And that was one of the best things I could have ever done, because it forced me to reach out and ask for help. And that is huge. So make sure you ask for help, and your healthcare team is one of the best ones.
Absolutely. Asking for help, leveraging all your resources through your healthcare team. I think those are some great suggestions. Now, Sharon, I'm going to put you on spotlight and ask you the next question. Now, I'm curious to know if you ever, or how did you build and sustain your support network, both within and outside your immediate circles?
Well, first we started building the support network with the nephrologists and the healthcare teams, and there's some amazing people there, and some people you just click with, and they're always there for you no matter what. You can phone them during whatever hours, and they're there. The other one is the friends and family network, and again, most of us have that in place. Our friends and family want to help. They just need you to tell them what you need. I took up belly dancing years before my husband failed, and that group of women were there for each other. We support each other. We've cried with each other. And again, when my husband needed a transfusion, there was no question. They all said, we're there, we're donating blood. We're not the right type, but we're donating blood. There was no question. Family members, again, were there for us. All they needed to know was, what do we need from them? How can they help us, whether it's big or small? One sister brought me frozen meals, healthy, nutritious, kidney-friendly frozen meals that I could keep in the freezer, so that on the days when you get back from dialysis at 6:30 at night, you can pop them in the microwave and you have something nutritious to eat without waiting till 10 o'clock at night. And so yeah, that's just the thing. And then reaching out, talking to people. What we found in our community was, when we started talking to people about the kidney journey, somebody else said, oh yeah, my mother is on dialysis, my father is on dialysis. We didn't know these people had kidney issues until we started talking about it. And so then they became our support group as well. And we can support each other because we know what each other's going through. So just talk about it, tell people what you need, and it'll come to you.
I agree. And I think part of the reason for this session, the aim of this session is also somewhat very similar, where we bring together people going through a similar journey and just sharing their experiences. So that's absolutely a great point. Now, we know caregiving comes with its own challenges, and I think talking about the challenges and some of your coping strategies might resonate with people attending this session. With this, I'll move ahead with my next question, which I think is for Sharon. Sharon, what has been the most challenging aspect of caregiving for you? And if you want to share any strategy, how you overcame it?
The biggest challenge, I think, is not knowing, well, there's a couple. The first one was not knowing what you're doing. When you start out, you have no clue. We were just dropped into the whole kidney thing, and so we didn't know what we were doing. And the second biggest one was COVID. And I think COVID was a big challenge for all of us, because all of a sudden the delivery guy can't come in your house anymore. So now you've got to get the supplies up the front stairs and into your house. You've got to sit outside the emergency. You can't go into various appointments. So navigating those challenges were difficult as well. And again, it was asking for help. We got help from big strong nephews to get those boxes in the house every month. They were right there. As soon as they saw the truck coming up the road, they came to the house and they were waiting to help us get those in. And speaking up with the healthcare providers, it was, okay, I have to be my husband's advocate. I have to go into the emergency with him. I am his advocate. That's it. And not screaming and yelling, but just being a little bit more assertive than we would have been prior to COVID. And with, as far as the challenges of not knowing what you're doing, we started asking questions. We learned how to read the blood work. We learned little challenges like that. In BC, we have the ability to get our blood work online. And so we signed up for that so that we could see it the next day after it was done. And if the diet needed adjusting, we could adjust it right away. We weren't waiting for the healthcare team to phone us and say, your potassium's too high, cut it back, or your phosphates are too low, or, you know, whatever it was. And again, with therapies as well, we just had to keep phoning and saying, we need this therapy. Why aren't we, where are we on the waiting list? And iron transfusion was 2 months down the road at our local healthcare. So we made other phone calls and we got him into another unit faster. So it's just, yeah, just learning to speak up.
That's true. Well, I agree. Not everyone comes from that medical background, and sometimes it just gets hard to understand how kidneys work, what's the disease about. So just educating yourself, researching, it's absolutely, that's one of the great strategies. Now let's shift our focus to the crucial aspect of caregiving, which is communication and advocacy. And Joshi, I'd like to hear from you on this topic. Could you start by sharing a situation where effective communication with healthcare providers made a significant difference in the care of your kidney patient?
For me personally, I've had to advocate a lot for my own father in ways with, my dad is a shy man. So, you know, I've had to be with him at his appointments. I've had to ask questions on his behalf. I've had to talk with doctors, ask doctors questions on his behalf. I've had to learn a lot. I've had to educate myself. I've had to educate on behalf of my dad, on behalf of my mom. I've had to learn to be a doctor. So it's been a difficult journey for my own self, learning and educating myself. If there's one thing that I have to say to all of you is to educate yourself. Because yes, the doctors are good. The nephrologists are good. The kidney school, let's per se, they're all good. But yes, like Erwin said, it's such an overload of information that you go for these 3-hour schools or for 3 days or whatever it is. It was a day for us, but it was so much information that I didn't walk away. I mean, I was like, what just happened in there? I had to learn a lot on my own. With that said, I kept on phoning and phoning. I mean, nurses, the writing emails, they probably got sick of me in the last first 6 months. They did. They all know me. Joshi. Yeah, that's Joshi. Oh, here she goes again. The questions were probably on repeat dial. One of the things that I also did was become a member of Kidney Circle, the Kidney Wellness Hub. It's an amazing platform for help support the physical, mental, social well-being for kidney patients, for caregivers like myself. It also offers a lot of information. It educates so much. You can ask other caregivers questions, any type of questions that you have. So all of that is very good. I mean, self-journey, your self-care is very important while you're being a caregiver for your family members, right? It's very important. Like all of you speakers have said, taking time for yourself. I take care of myself. I have to. or I mean, I would be up probably in the ward. I mean, I have to go swimming. It's my go-to. I need to go swimming every single day. I have to go there. I go for coffees, I go for walks, I go work out. I just need that. Or my mind will be elsewhere, which makes me strong. So, yeah. Attend virtual calls like this, virtual Zoom calls. You learn so much at these. You know, I've done a lot of that. So, yeah.
Great. Those are absolutely some great suggestions and ideas. Joshi, yes, self-care is very important. Now, building on a discussion about self-care and maintaining our own well-being, do you have any practical self-care tips you would recommend to our caregivers, fellow caregivers for the session?
I do meditation at night. I personally do meditation. I do a lot of yoga at night. There is apps on your phones that you can, you know, there's music, sound of music that you can, you know, go to sleep. It's good for your mind, right? It just soothes your brain. It's so good for you. I do it all the time, but I also do yoga, right? So
Yeah.
But for the person that doesn't do yoga, listen to soothing music. It's great. And the music is on the television as well. You know, you can use the soothing music. It'll soothe your brain, put you at ease. It's great. I mean, I also go to the sauna, steam room. Those are really good ways of just relaxing your body. Your body needs to be relaxed as a caregiver, right? The walks in the trails, hiking, all of that is so good. Nature is amazing.
That's true. I agree. Sometimes as a caregiver, you do tend to ignore your own, just taking care of your own self, and which sometimes ends up getting into burnout situation, which we don't want as caregivers. So yeah, those are some great suggestions. Thanks, Joshi. Now I am being mindful of the time, and we are transitioning towards the end part of our fireside chat. Now, as we approach the reflection phase of our discussion, I'd like to invite Judy to share her insights. Judy, looking back on your caregiving journey, what is one piece of advice, or if you have some suggestions you wish you had received at the beginning of your caregiving journey?
Right, Yash. The biggest thing that I found was accept help when people offer. They would say, "How are you doing?" I'd always say, "I'm okay," without really knowing that I wasn't okay. And it's really important. And I had smarter people than myself say, people don't know what you're going through. So when they offer help to you, take it, whether it's the smallest thing that they could possibly do, buy you a loaf of bread if you didn't feel you could get out to do it because you were tied up with something. Let them do it. They want to help. And in most cases, you've been brought up to be strong, and you don't think you need the help, but you really, really do need the help. I, like Joshi, I love to walk. I do a lot of walking. The picture in my introduction was taken a couple of weeks ago. I go out walking quite often with my sister, and we have a park where we live, and we walk and walk through the park, and it is a great place to let your mind forget about everything else. And I'm just going to give a little, right now I'm in Disney World. We're on vacation, and if anybody's ever been to Disney World, you know that you walk. And I walk, and I walked, and I walked, and right now I'm getting over 20,000 steps a day, and it's great. My husband, not so much. He's pretty tired, so we get him a scooter if he needs it because he's fatigued from getting older. I shouldn't say that too loud because he's in the next room. And from COVID as well, fatigue gets to him. He's a lot more tired now than he ever used to be. But walking is such a great way to clear your mind. And I wholeheartedly advise people to do that. But definitely ask for help. If you need it, And if people offer it, take it.
Absolutely. That is very true. Well, also, thank you for joining us from Disneyland, Judy. We really appreciate it.
Someone
Okay, Arvind.
suggested I should have Mickey ears on. You know what? I've been here so many times over the years. We actually are vacation club members here, and I've never once ever bought a pair of Mickey ears. So maybe I should, that's maybe a clue that I should go out and do that today. Maybe I will.
That's a great idea. I think Irvin has his, yeah, Irvin, over to you.
I just wanted to add, this was a discussion that we've had many times in the caregiver group that I co-facilitate in terms of asking for help. A lot of people will offer help, but really not know what you need. And as Judy's mentioned that, oh, I'm fine, when you really do need that loaf of bread. The people who offer to help are worried that they won't be able to help. So don't be afraid to say, oh, would you mind picking up groceries for me today? I just can't make it to the grocery store. And give them the list of things that you need. It will be a load off your mind that you've gotten that task taken care of. And the person or the people who have offered the help will be very happy that they've been assigned a task. It's not a sign of weakness to be very specific as to what you need to help you get through that particular day. And it works all around. The example that we joke about is one of the other caregivers was saying, it was in the winter, her husband was is the person she cares for, and it had snowed. This goes back a couple of years, she says, and she decided she was going to go out and shovel her walkway. And she did a little bit of it, and she just couldn't manage. The snow was too heavy, and she had some shoulder problems. One of her neighbors said, do you need any help? And she was about to say, no, everything's okay. And she says, would you mind please finishing shoveling my walkway? And apparently this gentleman was just pleased as punch that he could be able to help his next door neighbor. It works all the way around. Assign a task to somebody who offers to help if they don't know what you need. Everybody's happy all the way around.
Well, that's true, Irvin. Thank you for your insights and thoughts. Now that brings us to the Q&A section of our session for tonight, and we just have 2 minutes remaining for our session, so I'm going to quickly read over the question I just received in my chat from someone. So the question is, as the caregiver for my husband who is on home hemodialysis, nocturnal 3 nights a week for 7 hours, I feel the biggest issue is being his ears, his hands, lack of support from friends and family. How can I rebuild our mind and spirits? It's time to answer the question. Anyone who would like to address the question? I think Cleo has her hand raised. Cleo,
I have my
go
hand
ahead.
up. I said that's an interesting one because it sounds like there's twofold in there. They're talking about home hemo. So I know there's some people who are probably doing it now, might know a little bit more about that, but how it sounds like they're trying to build also some help in their community. It's a lot of research. I would say reach out to maybe what they call your regular community. So right now, I think Kidney Hub, I'm not sure how long it's been around, but I don't think it's been that long. Maybe over the last year or two, I think you guys really start building that. So look into the kidney community itself, and maybe even through the person's own doctor. As yourself, as a caregiver, I went out, and I'm not sure where the question is coming from, what part of the country, but I also looked at other resources. So one of them was Family Caregivers of BC. So they're caregiving, and that's for any kind of illness or any kind of caregiving you're doing in general. And they actually have groups that you can chat with online. And they also have a chat line also. So that's a really good one. I'm not sure if they have a national group, but I know there's different ones in different provinces. So that really helped, I would say, with that type of advice. Look at maybe not your particular groups. You might go through a disability group. I did that. I went and reached out and say, okay, what resources do they use? Maybe it can help me, you know? And I think I mentioned it earlier. I'm not sure how old this person was, but for me, when we started this journey, we were in our 40s. And I would say we were kind of there wasn't a lot of resources for people of our age group. I know it sounds funny, 40 is not that young, but a lot of times when we reach out, especially in my community, a lot of things were people who are older. They say, oh, you're too young. So we couldn't get the resources. So I guess reach out that things that you might not even think about and just look. You're gonna have to do a lot of research to help assist you on your caregiving journey. Anybody else can put their points in about home hemo, that would be
We
great.
have, thanks,
Yeah.
Cleo. I think we have Judy's hands up. Judy, do you want to go ahead?
Thanks, Josh. One thing I was going to suggest, and the Kidney Foundation is really good for this, at least in Ontario. I'm thinking it's going national. We have a peer support group, and we also have peer one-on-one support. One-on-one support is huge. If you are struggling, if you need to speak to someone, they will connect you directly with someone that has gone through the same thing that you are going through, and they will call and talk to you directly. It can be as impersonal as you want it to be, or it can be as personal as you want it to be. It's huge. And I've done it myself, working and have called one-on-one, and it is amazing. I've talked to people for an hour and a half straight because they just need the support. But don't be afraid to contact the Kidney Foundation office, and they will connect you with somebody directly.
That is very right. Thank you for mentioning that, Judy. We do have amazing programs, peer support, one-on-one group sessions. And in our one-on-one sessions, we try to create a match for you. We look into the background and we try to create a good match for you so that you have that relatability factor there. So yeah, great resources, leverage them for yourself, make the best use of it. And yeah, well, that almost brings us to our end of our session, and we don't really have any more questions in the chat section. So thank you all for your valuable information and insights. Thank you to the amazing 5 speakers who've joined us tonight. We've learned so much, and we certainly have we've learned so much, and your wisdom and your experiences. I'm sure whoever is attending the session, the attendees, they're taking away some great insights and some great learnings through your journey.
Yeah, actually, I have a
And
question for you.
yeah,
The people who are on the call with us, do they have opportunities to get back in touch with you or anybody else after the fact with questions if they haven't had any chance to think about something while we're online?
yes, they do. So we have in the feed loop chat section, we have our email sent out, and in case if they have any questions, they will be sending those questions through that email, and then I can definitely forward those questions to you if you'd like to take on and network with them. So there is an opportunity for networking and connecting with the attendees of this for the session tonight. Thanks for that question. Thanks for that question, Arvind. This brings us to the end of the session. Thank you all for joining us. Please join us in our closing remarks at 5:45 p.m. EST to round up the day. We look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.